What's going on? This is Aaron Price, the CEO of Tech United. We are 2 weeks and 1 day away from the 2022 Propelify Innovation Festival. You know, we've had a variety of areas of focus throughout the years, and this year the thing that I am focused on is propelling positivity. It feels like there's a lot of negativity in the world, and this event is always such a positive experience. So I'm looking forward to having this really fun, positive experience. I want to share some of the history of how we've gotten here and why it's so important, not just for you personally, but for your business to attend. Welcoming on Chris Gannon, the CEO of Captivate Talent, who's been joining us as a volunteer since maybe you volunteered the second year, Chris, but you were definitely there.
Second year, yep.
Second year volunteer, first year attendee. There, are you in that photo somewhere? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in the back somewhere.
You're in the back.
Yeah.
This was our group of volunteers.
I think I have a suit on. Oof.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
I demand a very formal presence from the volunteers who give us their time for free to help make Propelify happen. What do you think is the number one reason people should go to Propelify?
You're just building community and network. Honestly, if you're looking to make connections, talk to like-minded people, if you're an innovator, entrepreneur, even if you're just trying to learn, it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. But so what's interesting is people tend to register based on like the most well-known speaker that we market. You know, we've had Gary Vee and Ariana Huffington and Tim Draper, really fantastic speakers over the years. But I agree with you. I think the most important thing are the people that you meet in the audience, at the exhibitors, network around the event. Can you share any examples of people that you've met over the years that have proved to be beneficial?
Yeah. So the first year I volunteered, I think I just moved back to the New Jersey area, and I somehow was on your email list, and it was like, hey, volunteers. And I was like, all right, let's just get back into the community. Like he stood up and said, does anyone want to run investor speed dating? And I had no idea what it was, but I raised my hand because I think, frankly, I had nothing really to do and no.
Oh, we lost Chris, and he's almost back. And these things happen, technical difficulties. Chris was saying that he ran the investor speed dating experience where we connect early to raise capital.
Aaron, you're gone.
There. Who did we? I'm not sure if you lost us or you, Chris, but you're back.
We lost you. Now he's gone. But yeah, I volunteered. I raised my hand one meeting. You threw me on investor speed dating. Had no idea what it was or how to put it together. And it was actually the same year I started my company, Captivate Talent. And some of those investors that I met that day, just by chance and just by being there and giving them a good experience, are actually people now I work with 5-6 years later in business. And have really good relationships with and can pick up the phone. And I was at a conference last week, and one of the investors, I reached out to them. They sent one of their portfolio companies to the conference with us, sent them a selfie, and like that's the type of relationship we have now.
Isn't it interesting that the long game? I find that a lot of people are short-term thinkers, or a few too many people come into, I think, a conversation with kind of what's in it for me. And I consistently find that the more people just see how they can help somebody else out, it always comes around. Would you agree that's been your experience?
The first off, those short-term like thinkers, you could spot them right away at a conference. They're kind of hovering. They always focus on like the A player, like they're following Gary Vee, trying to get a conversation. Like it's not a good way to approach an event like this. You have to just go into it and be like, what do I want to learn? How can I help, and what can I give to somebody? And maybe it comes back, maybe it doesn't, but you have to give much more on the front end if you're expecting some kind of return in the long run. People want to work with somebody like that.
Agreed. Any standout moments over the years of things? You know, we have a lot of stories like behind the scenes of things that almost never happened or didn't work out or any of that. But and George Sold, good to see you. Also a longtime volunteer, big fan of George's. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Yeah. But he dropped a comment on Facebook, by the way. I'm not sure if you saw that, Chris. But any interesting stories that stand out to you over the years?
Yeah, the first year I attended, it was a beautiful day. It was sunny. I think it was 80 degrees on the pier in Hoboken, and I was like, this is the best. Like, always coming back to this thing. And I don't think we've ever had nice weather since then, right? There's either a hurricane,
What?
a
No,
heat
what?
wave.
Hold on. We've
So
had nice weather
what I'm
every
saying,
year except one. Every year except one. Remember, we want people to come to the event, Chris.
that was
We've had good
actually
weather.
the most memorable year, and my team actually loved it. I think afterwards we went to the Pig and Parrot. Everyone was in the same bar, like high fives going on everywhere. Because that was the year I think everyone pulled together and had to come through. And it was like it was like 45 degrees and raining.
Well, what was that, in 2019? It did rain, and
Yeah.
I agree with you. I thought what was very cool about that experience, obviously, you know, the weather on the surface was a bummer, but the culture of the people who showed up were people who were really dedicated to building their businesses and to entrepreneurship and to like showing up no matter what. And that was kind of the theme that we promoted. And the culture of that event that year was special.
Yeah, you know what? You just said a phrase that reminded me of that year. It was showing up. And when we run investor speed dating, which is now called the fundraising forum this year, it's going to be a little different. But there's investors that have to come, and then there's founders that have to come.
Yeah.
That year, I mean, I just remember waking up and I was getting email after email cancellations. And the funny part was a lot of the cancellations were actually on the founder side. And the show up mentality hit me when Greg Olson, the tech philanthropist / astronaut, not the football player, who's got to be, I think he's in his 80s now, came trudging through that rainy, muddy field. And we were right on the water. We were in the back. We were not in the prime location, which we were supposed to be right on the water. It was supposed to be beautiful. But he showed up. And, he had an hour and a half drive. He got there and he showed up. And, that's why he's probably in that position where there were founders that missed out on that opportunity to have a conversation with him and potentially get funded by him, or at least make a connection.
Agreed. Which I think it was so representative of the whole point of this event, right? We talked for those who aren't aware, Propelify's culture is the representation of propelling ideas into action, not sitting on the sidelines, not letting a little rain stop you from showing up for the things that are most important in your life or in your career. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I think if you are a founder of a company and you want to build a company and it's raining out and that stops you from doing what you need to do, like just pack it in today.
Yeah.
Go apply to a job somewhere. Like you're not cut out for it.
You definitely don't have the grit to build a business if you can't literally weather a little bit of a storm. But that's what was so cool. A lot of people showed up. People were packed under the tents, for the rain coverage. But it brought a really unique culture that year in particular. But every year, I'm walking around and high fiving people. People are psyched to be there. I find it, the New Jersey Tech Meetup was what inspired the idea for Propelify. And I always found that there's a narrative that's consistent with the two of those things. No matter what was going on with my personal life or my business, the meetup and now Propelify were always an enormous highlight that, I talked in the intro about propelling positivity. And they were such positive experiences that I found, yes, on the practical side, I learned a lot. I made great business connections. But it was also tremendously uplifting and motivating and inspiring, and gave me fuel for the next weeks or months ahead. Have you had that same experience?
Yeah, you know what I call it, the conference high. Like my team was at a conference last week, and somebody messaged me today, and like it was a really nice message, and I said, the high was just we're just coming down from it, and your message just re-sparked it, and I got that feeling again this morning about all those connections you made and those partnerships you make, and some of those meetings you have are lifelong meetings. I mean, I do think back to that first year I volunteered. Like I am 5, 6, 7 years almost in now, talking to these same people, and like have true relationships with them. Like they are not business partners anymore. They are people I call like sometimes when I just need some help, or when we're when COVID hit, we texting back and forth, jumping on happy hours together. Like these are people you just met at a conference. Like they're not like your friends or anything like that, but they turn into that.
I mean, you and I met through Propelify. Some of my closest relationships today are people who I met through the meetup and through Propelify, who I've now seen go on to have really impressive careers. Some of them starting and selling businesses. Some of them starting businesses. They didn't work out. They start something else. It's a very personal experience. It's not, that's why we call it a festival versus a conference. It really is it's a festive atmosphere about trying to celebrate and encourage those who are working on interesting things. One of my biggest regrets, actually, maybe the biggest regret of my since running these, I believe you've met a good friend of mine, Mark Yakinich.
Yep.
He's a mentor. And he's a tech leader. His dad's birthday was May 20th, or is May 20th, and the first year event was in May 20th, 2016. And Mark's dad, I think, was turning 80 or later in his 70s, and he's a big fanboy of Gary Vee. And what I wanted to do was to have the entire audience sing Mark's dad happy birthday as the closer to Gary's talk. And Gary came off stage, and the moment he got down, he was more popular now, but he still got swarmed, and I missed the opportunity. But I will not let that happen again. But besides that, right, how cool was that event?
That was really cool, but that also reminds me, getting swarmed. That's like what you don't want to do if you're looking to make strong connections at a conference. You don't want to go find Gary Vee and try to get his attention. You really, and this is I stole this from Tim Ferriss years ago. He had a podcast about networking. Go find the people that you can rise up through the ranks with over the next couple of years, that you can help each other out, that you can offer something to them. You most likely, if you run up to Gary Vee, what are you going to be able to give to him to help him out? Probably not much, unless
unless you're running
unless you're running a multi-million-dollar media budget.
I disagree with this point. Some of my friends and mentors over the years are people who I've gone up to a conference. It's not maybe not quite as the celeb types as a Gary Vee, but I remember my very first, I think it was the first startup weekend in New York City, and this guy who I'd never heard of, this guy named David Kidder, got up to give the keynote, and I was blown away by his wisdom on building businesses. And I'm in a room full of entrepreneurs. It was standing room only, and I was like, well, and I'm a guy who goes up and talks to people. And I was like, well, for sure, there's going to be a line out the door to talk to this guy. And there wasn't. So I agree with your point that, maybe trying to keep Gary's attention in that atmosphere is tricky. I wouldn't discourage people from doing that, but I would come prepared with, how are you adding value? What can you help him with? What do you have to offer him? Not, hey, can I, just get a selfie and sign my thing? That's worthless. But, I talked then to David Kidder about, seeking some of his advice, and I offered to make some intros. He ended up being an angel investor in a future business of mine. He's gone on to build a great business that he sold to Accenture. But I think this idea of going up, offering value, I think that's the key to what you were saying. You said unless you're the founder of a bazillion-dollar company, I don't think that's the case. I think Gary's a guy who respects value, whether you want to help him get 10 more cases of wine or books sold or whatever else, or refer him talent, but bring something to the table, right?
Exactly.
I think that's a really important point. We put on our badge, what are you looking for help for, and what can you help with? Because it's a two-way street,
Exactly. I think people underestimate too the value of building that relationship though over time versus commoditize, almost making it transactional. I'm just saying, here's an exchange that I can get from you or for you, or here's what I want.
Yeah. To continue on the soapbox, I think the focus on follow-up, I can't tell you how many founders don't follow up on, I think it's just a sales mentality, but on looking for mentors, on networking, on brevity in that email follow-up of why it is this person should be helping you out. So, if you meet you will meet really impressive attendees and speakers at Propelify. If you're looking to connect to them afterwards, keep it short and sweet and why it's worthwhile. Because I find so often people follow up, 17 pages of text that no one's really going to read. And, the way to get the meeting is to keep it short, sweet, and valuable. I even myself sometimes use this as a filter. If I get a cold email, if someone follows up, I'll respond to the second one, but I often won't respond to the first.
Something that at Captivate, we coach people on for networking events, but we also, when we hit investor speed datings, one of the things I say if we have time to talk to the founders before they go into the event is your elevator pitch is supposed to be as long. The term comes from, if you're on the first floor of a building and you hit 428, that's how long your elevator pitch should take. So if it's 4 minutes long, you probably lost somebody's attention 3.5 minutes ago. So 30 seconds to a minute. Be ready if you're going there and you're trying to find something and you're seeking out an objective, have your pitch ready, have it refined, make it short, sweet, simple, and impactful. And I think that's something that people forget to practice.
I totally agree. how is your, I guess I was gonna say, how has your role evolved, but more so like, why do you stay involved with what we do? Because it's an enormous time commitment. You've got your own business. Like, why are you doing this?
So when you said 2 weeks and 1 day away, I was like, okay, there's the clock. It started ticking. Honestly, you know what? I've had a lot of fun doing it over the last couple of years. It gives me a purpose to reconnect with some of those relationships that I've made 4 or 5 years ago. So it's almost like that yearly reminder to reconnect with that person, catch back up with them, check in with them, even if they're not coming back or attending. Um, it's great to see founders inspired. It's great to see investors like on their toes and getting hungry for pitches. Last year, I think the guy who won the Better X Challenge with PSE&G, was that it? The Better World,
Better Planet, yeah, yep.
Better Planet one. He was at Investor Speed Dating right before that, and he came back to the booth and he's like, I want to thank you guys so much. That got me so hyped up and revved up and prepped me for going on stage and having to pitch against two other companies. And he was the winner. He won like $50,000. It's the guy from Atlanta, right?
He did win $50,000. He was from Atlanta. This year we got a guy coming in from Nigeria for that same competition. I mean, that's the whole point, right? We have both been the founder, and sometimes still are, who are desperate for those kinds of connections, or maybe the capital if it's a down month and you need the runway. I mean, this is why we do it, to help those founders have the runway to succeed and to accelerate the time frame so that that guy in that particular case now has a strong relationship with PSEG to potentially work out partnerships. We know we've had that happen in other years.
Yeah, it was such a cool moment, and you could see when he came back, the team, my team internally, who also steps away from their desk and making money for a day as recruiters, they were pumped up too. Like, the energy is infectious, and like maybe if you need that second chance or you're a little down, like, that is a reason to come out and go. Like, don't shy away from an event like this, because you're going to feed off of other people's energy.
Totally agree. You reminded me of another awesome moment last year at the Better X challenges. We have startup competitions in a variety of categories. The other one was in Better Wellness, and in the finals it came down to two startups, and one of them was much further along than the other. And one of the judges asked the question of the one that was much further along, like, what would you do with the money? And he said, honestly, we don't need the money as much as this other guy, so give it to him, because clearly they're earlier and they have no runway and they're just getting started. And it was that's sort of the whole point, right? Like, see how we can help support other founders and grow. That was a very special moment. I thought it was very cool. He also had a cool pink suit on that I was digging. But the culture of not just helping other people out, but literally, this guy probably would have won, but saying no, he can have the 50 grand was pretty incredible.
Wow, that's actually, speaking of suits, I mean, part of the reason I come back to Propelify every year is to see what Aaron Price is going to wear. So
I've had some good outfits.
Any big surprises this year?
It arrived yesterday, and my wife Rebecca, who she wasn't a big fan, so I don't know what to do now. It's a curveball. I was going for classy and simple, and she's like, it's a little boring.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Keeping it real in the Price household. What are you looking forward to seeing on any activations or speakers or anything that you've seen so far that you're looking forward to seeing this year?
So I believe there's a talk that I want to pull myself way up for on, the future of work, and if people are returning to the office, and that whole work from home versus remote versus hybrid versus in the office mindset. So I'm excited for that. And I believe your wife is running something on community and culture, and for us, that's who we are as a company. Like, should we be fostering community? Should we be building community? How important is that for us? So I'm really curious to hear that too, if I get a chance to run over to it.
Likewise, my wife Rebecca, who is a partner at Primary Ventures, which is I do put friends on stage, but only when they qualify. She happens to. For those of you who don't know her,
very qualified.
She's much more qualified than I am to be on stage. One of her partners, Ben Sun, who's recently named to the Forbes Midas list of investors, is going to be joining us. Mojo just announced this new sports betting platform launched in New Jersey. Vinny Barara, who was the founder of Diapers.com, is speaking about a variety of things, including the launch of that. He's one of his co-founders, Mark Laurie, another one, A-Rod. So that's going to be awesome. We have some incredible women leaders, in some cases talking about female entrepreneurship, in some cases talking about how they've built their businesses or revolutionized industries. It's one of our most diverse speaker lineups yet, so I'm really excited and pleased with that. But 2 weeks, 2 weeks in one day. There are more efficient ways to say that. We're 15 days away. 2 weeks away from tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to seeing you there, Chris. Thank you so much for all of the time that you've put into helping Tech United and Propelify over the years. I really am grateful. You do represent the embodiment of helping and without seeking anything in return to see what comes of it. So I genuinely appreciate all the time and support you've lent us and your friendship. So looking forward to celebrating again with you. Awesome. 2 weeks and a day from today.
We got to get to work on my end. So we got to put together, we're putting together a really fun event this year. We're changing it a little bit. So
it's going to be great at the fundraising forum. So register at propelify.com. Check out my LinkedIn. I wrote a song about the event that I posted last night. If you're looking to be entertained for 1 minute and 57 seconds, you can get a free ticket thanks to Chris and Captivate using Captivate Propels at propelify.com. I will see you there October 6th on the Hoboken waterfront. Chris, give it to me. 1, 2, 3. Boom. See you soon. Thanks a lot.
Take care, Ryan. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.